there's any others' concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive and members of council. Just a little bit of an explanation here. First off, please take note that the contract is a not to exceed amount of $20,000. It's not guaranteeing that we will pay out $20,000. I don't foresee that we will pay out $20,000 for the amount of work that's left to do on this project. So it's an up to. We wanted to make sure we were covered in case more work needed to be done. But we don't foresee another $20,000 being spent on this. It's a not to exceed amount. First off, Mr. Speck is the most respected urban design guru in the country that has to do with bike lanes, walkability, and all of the other things that we are trying to work on here in Uptown View. For his initial contract that we signed with him last year, he provided services to us that actually exceeded the amount of his contract by about $8,000. But he kept providing those services to us because he really likes our community, believes in what we're trying to do, and believes that the changes that we'll be making, especially in Uptown View, will be so valuable to our community. And so he did go above and beyond on that first contract. He did present to this council and to the community his findings and initial report. And we did get a lot of feedback, believe it, from that initial idea and those reports. And so we've been going through and tracking that feedback and taking comments from the public and holding public meetings and taking all of those things into account. I know it sounds like it should be a really simple thing to do, that you just draw these lines on a plan set and say, okay, this is what we should do. It's very complicated and it takes a lot of effort. And so since we've received his initial findings and his report, we've been working very hard on the feedback that we've received from the community. We've been working very hard with our consultants at Pioneer, and Dave Schultz put in a ton of work into this effort. And so we are finally to the point where we have a bunch of plan sets and a bunch of ideas that we would like Mr. Speck to review again. And so that's why we're asking for this an additional contract to be signed with Mr. Speck so he can provide us that feedback and that information so that we can move forward with a plan that we could be proud to say is endorsed by Jeff Speck. That really does carry some weight. Believe it or not, if you Google communities that have used him, it's very, it's kind of exciting that he would spend so much time with us. And so what we're asking for you tonight is to approve a contract that we could sign with Mr. Speck that would allow him to finish this work for us. And then we would be very excited to be able to present to you. We're hoping that first Wednesday in December, Dave Schultz and I, to present to you this final plan with all the kinks worked out. It includes bike lanes, it includes intersection improvements, it includes parking. And those initial numbers are coming out with a huge increase in the amount of parking spaces in Uptown View. So I think it's well worth the money. We're going to ensure the job gets done. We're going to ensure it gets done right. And I, again, do not foresee it exceeding, not coming close to that $20,000 mark, but that's what we wrote into the contract as a up to amount. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate your input. The thing that I find a little deceiving here is it says fees will be based on an hourly rate of $280 for services and $140 per hour for travel. That seems rather excessive in our area to be paying a guy almost $400 an hour for a study where we seem to be saturated with studies at this time. So I, with Mr. Henderson, will be opposed to this at this time.
I'll turn it over to Karen. I would clarify, this is not a study. This is a design of an actual plan that will be implemented in Uptown Butte. I know there's been a lot of consternation and whatnot relative to the amount of studies that we pay for. This is not a study. So, Karen, do you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fisher, and members of council, I'd just like to clarify that the hourly rate is $280 an hour for services. He charges us $140 an hour when he was traveling, and which he won't be traveling. So the total amount is $280 an hour. It's not $400.
All the Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. If that be the case, I think we should have the contract read as it is, because anytime you have things in writing, both parties are bound by that agreement. And if we're going to pay him $280 an hour and $140 for travel, that's what it states, and that's what we're looking at tonight.
Right, and that is exactly what it states. And if, in fact, he did need to travel here for some reason in the next 2 to 3 months, we would want to make sure we were reimbursing him for the rate of $140 an hour for the travel.
Not the 200.
Not the 280. We would want that stated, so I agree with you 100%.
Likewise, Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, I've got some real concerns about the design. It seems we're paying a lot of money, but when they narrowed up the parking lanes, I'm half scared to park my truck if it's going to get hit. You know, then it's also getting back into the lanes. It's really narrowing down the travel path on Granite Street. You know, and plus we did hear some comments that there was about people that don't want the reverse angle parking. You know, there's been a lot of different comments. So I'm not sure that I'm really on the side of.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sorge, Mr. Chief Executive, and members of council. The plan that will be implemented has not been presented to you yet. So there are changes to that plan, and a lot of those changes do entail the reverse angle parking concept, and what we would actually be proposing to move forward with may not be that. I would let Dave, if he would like to speak to the, with the drive lanes and things like that, but I would like to say Granite Street right now, the way it is striped in the drive lanes is absolutely beautiful. It's wonderful. People go extremely slowly, and that's what we want them to do.
Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sorge, the Granite Street, following our repaving here about a month ago, we restriped that basically according to what we hope will be the restriping for most of the uptown. Now, what you're referring to is on the north side of Granite Street, we striped a 7-foot parking lane instead of 8-foot parking lane. What's missing, because we haven't got the approval of this body yet, is the bike lane. The center line was put in the street, and the 7-foot parking line was put in the street, contemplating a 4-foot bike lane will be on the street side of that parking. So when you park in the future, assuming that we get approval to add the bike lanes, when you open your door, it won't be into traffic, it will be a 4-foot bike lane that will be very safe for you to get out in. So what you see there is kind of an incomplete product, but all of the additional parking that we were able to establish on the south side of the brand is indicative of what we can see with the rest of this plan. And all of the reverse, well, I shouldn't say all, virtually all of the reverse angle parking has been eliminated. We had a lot of public feedback that that was not something that the community desired, so that's been eliminated. We do think, when we present to you folks on 3rd of December, I believe it is, that we'll propose that we retain reverse angle parking just on Mercury Street, kind of as a demonstration street. There's not a lot of parking that goes on there, but we would stripe Mercury Street for reverse angle just to have an idea of what that might be like. But aside from that, there'll be no other reverse angle.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Karen and Dave, for the work you put into this. We were waiting for a presentation on this line, and now I see that we have this request to have Chief Executive sign an agreement. I remember back when Jeff came out here, and I went to his meetings. They were very informative. He's quite well known. He's well read. He knows his stuff about walkabilities in cities. That was very refreshing and a good idea. We decided to enter into a contract for $20,000. He put in his work. He gave us 20 grand. He gave us a presentation. In my opinion, those are the tools that we needed as a community to take forward and possibly do our own, take it from there on our own, because Butte is not Philadelphia or whatever, where Mr. Speck comes from. There's 2 things I'm a little concerned about. One is we just raised taxes. There's been a lot of talk about studies, and I know it's not a study, but it's professional services. I don't know why we can't just take this on ourselves and continue on with it. I did not know from the beginning that we had another contract with this gentleman. I I always thought that this was the end of it, he was going to do his presentation, we were there. So, I just think we owe it to the community, after their outcry about going outside and throwing studies at things, and also, you know, professional services. And to me, this kind of came out of the woodwork, in my opinion. I was surprised, and the thing that really concerns me is it sounds like, and even Karen mentioned to me yesterday, we just talked in the hallway, that Mr. Speck has done some work, and she said, well, he's been working for free, and God love him, but, you know, if he's working for free, nobody works for free. And you mentioned, Karen, you did mention $8,000 possibly that he's already put in extra work.
That's not what I said.
Okay, well, let me finish now. Hang on one second.
You're putting words in my mouth.
All right, well, it just appeared that he might be doing some work, and I know he doesn't have a contract, and I know I asked Annette, and he has not billed us for anything, I understand that. That, you know, he is going forward. But I'm a little worried about, you know, maybe making a promise to this guy, I don't know, I'm not sure. I feel a little bit, you know, nervous about that part of it, so maybe you can explain.
I would like to clarify a statement that you just made that is not true. Mr. Chief Executive and Chairman Shaw, I did not say that Mr. Speck has been working for free. I said that he gave us more in his previous contract than he billed us for. He worked extra hours on that contract. And he has not been working for us up to this point. We have a bunch of work that